This is the engine out of Mac. It's here for some upgrades, which I'll explain in a bit. Today's video is gonna be a simple one of just filling this hole. I'm gonna do some sheet metal fabrication here because this is where the air conditioner bracket normally is on the 3.2. My engine won't have air conditioning. So I'm going to modify the engine tin to kind of block off that big hole there. Because this is an air-cooled engine, Porsche does a pretty good job of creating a rubber seal all the way around the thing because the exhaust heat can come up through here, get circulated into the fan, and just continually pump heat into the engine, which you don't want. So I'm gonna keep that hole on this side. This will be for the actual heater. That gets closed off with a heater duct. This side here needs a block-off plate. Most of these cars had AC in them from the factory, so I'll never find the right part. It's easier for me just to modify this one. The other very common problem here is these things crack. They always crack right here. Both of my cars have the same engine tin, and they both have that similar crack. So we'll go ahead and weld that up too. This should be a relatively simple project. You know, that's always famous last words, but I'm excited to get some welding done. It's been a little while since I've done some welding on this car, but there's always welding, right? I have been doing a lot of work on the engine upgrades, and I'm gonna give you a little sneak peek now, but I'm also going to be at Air and Water, April 27th, and also at EMPI, the Porsche Club 356 swap meet is on Sunday, April 28th. This engine will be on display. I'll be there. Come say hello in the PMO booth. And then this is where we just whittle away a little arts and crafts project here. So that is the template, you know, pretty simple rectangle with a little notch taken out of it, but you can tell it doesn't sit flat with the tin because the original tin has an embossed section. So see how it's raised right here? It's got a raised portion and then it dips down where the bolt attaches. So there's these two areas where it's kind of bumped up. So that'll be the more challenging or fun part, is to create that relief in that blockout plate so it looks actually factory. So hopefully you can see there where I put the two tick marks where the jog goes up and then back down. So if you looked at the profile view, it'd have basically two bends there. And then same thing here, I've just marked those lines and monitored the angle there. We want this angle to carry over. And then it's basically gonna make a little turn here, a little radius on that. If this was all in one straight line, it would be easy to put it on the brake and, you know, bend it twice. But because they intersect, it's a lot more force and a lot more difficulty to create this junction without causing creases and stuff. So I think the best way to form this is with a press tool, and we'll just squish it down onto a little mold. And then here's what those two bends look like. See how it's like a 45-degree jog where it goes 45 down and then 45 over. So boom, boom, boom. And we just need to measure the height of that depression. It's a little bit smaller than a pencil. So this transfer punch is smaller than a pencil, so I'm just laying that on there. And then I'm eyeballing it to see if that's the right height. This is still too big. Go to the next smallest size. So it's just making contact on both now. That's the right one. So this measures 5.1. That's a pretty deep depression. I have a bead roller, but I don't have a bead roller of that depth. That's kind of an unusual size, I think. So it's pretty deep. So I think creating a press tool is probably the easiest way to go. All right, this probably doesn't make much sense, but I am going to use my laser to create basically a form tool. And this is the shape that we need. It's basically just 1/2 of this. I cut this in multiple layers, so I'm gonna glue these two together with PVC glue. This is like literally for your sprinklers. Make sure that's spread out well enough. And then there's these alignment pins here in the center. And we're just gonna let that glue up. There's the 3 registration holes that are on the top and the bottom. So those are going to have pins, and then this is going to go together with the holes lined up. This was all done with the computer CNC. So that is the form tool. Now we just need to put some metal in and see if the plastic is going to be strong enough to actually form some 20 gauge. It's not very thick, 20 gauge metal. I'm hoping we can create that depression. Just push it down with the press. So those pins now are kind of embedded in the wood. So when this guy comes on top, it has a place to register against those pins. So this one's a little too short. Hopefully with the metal in there, it'll still work. I might have to make that one longer, but that's the idea anyways, to basically have a way for this to be centered all the time. And then I'm gonna cut the tops of these off because we're just gonna be pushing down on them. We don't wanna push down on the screws. I think we can just pull this pin out a little bit. Yeah, that should work like that. All right, here's the big squeeze. So, got the metal. This is 20 gauge. I just checked it here with this little thickness gauge here. So, put it on there. That is 20 gauge. So yeah, I'm just gonna give it a try. I mean, what could go wrong with this cheap tooling? Here we go. Things are starting to curl up a little bit, so let's just stop there. We could always go deeper, but let's just see what happened. All right, that was my mistake because I didn't have enough material here. I really cut this piece too small, but the impression is definitely there, and it's pretty deep. This is kind of what we want to see. It's basically just this little shape right here. So the section I need is the section that is missing. Like I didn't position it right, because this is that right there. And clearly I need to have excess metal on this edge. So I actually marked here where I'm gonna be, I need to have extra material. So I'm gonna go out to basically this piece of wood, and then on this side, it needs to continue this way. So it needs to be all the way out to here, and like basically a bigger square, like that size. So here we go again. So this time, it's right on the edge on that side, but this is the side we want to keep. This section right here, that's what we want to keep. So going back to the template, I now have enough material. The stamping is pretty nice. It's pretty crisp right there. And I think the height is just about right. So this might be a good view of that 45-degree jog. That's kind of what I got. Then here it is in the part. So it's really kind of getting close. This one matches pretty well on this side, but this one here is going to need some hammer and dolly work, it looks like, because this is a little bit more shallow than that side, and that jog is a little bit more vertical. I don't know if you can tell, but sometimes it's not exactly 45. I'm gonna actually make a small change to, I guess it's right in this side. I'm gonna lower the height down. So I'm gonna sand this thing a little bit. All right, this is take 3 after a couple tooling adjustments. We're nowhere near at the max 20 tons, but it is a few tons for sure. This is pretty close without doing a ton of effort on the tooling. So that's what I got so far, and we'll just fine tune the rest, you know, hammer and dolly. But now we'll strip the paint, cut it to size, and then start welding and then just cleaning up the edges to make it match this. We'll just combine, you know, kind of the best overall fit. We'll massage this side and that side to just make it look like it was never cut. Just change that angle ever so slightly. So just make that line up like that. And then to cut it, I'm just gonna scribe it with this really sharp pointer. Just snipping right along that scribe line there. There's a little bit of it left. Make sure that's the line, yep. This was right where the clamp was, so if we need to trim that with a file or with the little angle grinder, we could do that too. So with snips alone, we gotta kind of radius that corner a little bit, but we're getting very close to the right shape here. Ever so slightly, just, you know, make sure you get it as tight as you can for that gap. So right now I'm just looking for, you know, the best possible place to put a tack. So probably right here, and then we'll have to hammer this part to match. We knew it wasn't perfect when we formed it, but, you know, we did the best we could. And now we just want to, you know, get it kind of tacked in place, and then we'll reshape as we go. Just welded all the parts that like fit well. Still have some work to do in this corner, and the height of this is slightly off. And then we got to reshape this profile here. No big deal, but I just wanted to get it in close position, and then we'll go through and massage these little spots here to double fit. And then right here, we'll just, you know, we'll get that level fixed up. So these welds here was able to shrink the metal enough to where this gap is slightly larger. This being 20 gauge is very challenging, but I can do this corner or go around there. Just stretching that right there to bend it around just a little bit more. This is too much of a radius, so I'm going to turn it this way. And then this hammer is perfect for this little corner. So we're going to do this 45 and just make it match. Okay, I got the jogged areas to line up, and happy with the shape of this. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish welding it, and then we can do the final trim to fit. This is what the backside looks like, which we'll also be able to metal finish this side, so it's really gonna be like what I try to strive for is undetectable repair or modification, whatever you wanna call it. All right, welding's done. I had a little trouble here on the end. Basically, this metal 20 gauge is so thin that when you get to the end, it's very difficult to avoid it from just eroding into a big hole. So it wasn't a hole, but it turns into like a moon, and it just takes a lot of filler there. So I'm gonna smooth all this out, and we'll get ready to paint it. Oh, and I almost forgot about this crack. So I've taken the paint off. I'm gonna weld that up. Clean the paint off on both sides. Gonna weld that up. And there's a reason why I leave extra metal on there. It's to make this end weld slightly easier. So I did that here too. The more mass you have on the end, the easier it is to create the weld and then cut it off later. So I've taken care of that crack, it's now gone. And on the back side, I've ground it mostly smooth, and I'm gonna go ahead and put a plate on here. I guess it goes this way. Yeah, so this is gonna line up to that sort of corner. And I don't normally recommend, you know, overlapping metal like that, but in this case, it just needs a little extra support. So I'm gonna weld all the edges and then trim it to size after, but that will strengthen this so it won't crack again. Here it is, fortified. This is not going to crack again. I even tied welds into the nut. So there's the plate surrounding the nut, it's welded to the nut, and then it's welded along this like 3 edges. From the top, it's an invisible repair. From the bottom, it's just a little bit extra lumpy, but you know, I think it's fine. No one's gonna see that anyways. And I'm gonna just do the same kind of metal treatment on this before we paint it. Both sides do look pretty nice. The weld is mostly gone. So now I'm gonna get my template back out and we'll trim this extra material. So now we're just sneaking this thing in and removing as little material as possible. So it is rubbing up against the console, so we'll use the Sharpie and we'll cheat that line over just a little bit. Yeah, so this being tight on this side is making it hard to fit over here. So let's just see what we can do. Still have half a hole here where this is just not going enough. And I can also tell that right here, it's running into the cam cover, and we don't want to eat into the cam cover. So we probably should put a little feature in there to go around that. That's it. All the holes are lined up. There's the little half moon right there. It kind of clears the cam cover. No contact. That hole there is, you know, reasonably lined up. There it goes. This side's lined up. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 screws holding this on. I could potentially drill another hole right here because there's another place on the cam cover to attach another screw. But my God, this thing has enough screws already, so I'm not going to even drill that hole. It's not going anywhere, and it now has the function of blocking off excess heat, and it also just looks finished. So that's awesome. Now let's paint it. Like the shirt says, it's only metal. Doing this kind of detail is tedious and it's actually pretty difficult. If you're interested in learning how to weld thin sheet metal, I have a course. It's several hours of like setup tips, troubleshooting, technique, planishing. It's a lot of what we did here today. And it's for sale, like it's $100, but I did put some time into it. So if you're interested in getting started doing this kind of thin sheet metal, it's a good place to start. It does take a ton of practice. So welding 20 gauge on ends, it's pretty tough. I don't want to make it look too easy, but it's certainly achievable with practice. You guys know I've had my 356 for a number of years. That's where I learned, and I've been doing this now for 20 plus years. So anyways, if you're interested, I'll put a link in the description below. It's through the Thinkific website, so they just host the files. You can download them, use them whenever you want. I think it'll save time versus just learning on your own. There's not a lot of good information on thin sheet metal, so I found that that course would be helpful to others. Another guy to check out is also on YouTube is Ryan Cross. He has the same methodology. He's super talented, amazing metal shaper, but his welding technique is very similar with TIG and planishing metal and keeping things straight. We have like a similar, I think we were both kind of trained by coach builders, and he's absolutely a coach builder. So I would recommend him too if you want to get some tips and tricks now and then. And then this is the side that had the crack in it, and that crack was visible all the way over to here. Now you can't see that it's cracked. And then from under the car, you really can't tell that it was repaired. So that's cool. I'm happy with that job.